Welcome everybody to today's session. We are on day 2 on the workshop on creating awareness on open science and its lack of adoption into research, practice, and processes within higher education institutions in the Middle East and North Africa. And we are happy to have this workshop hosted by the Association of African Universities, the North African Regional Office, PLOS, the British University in Egypt, UNESCO, and from TCC Africa. I am the Executive Director of the Training Center in Communication, and we are based in Nairobi at the University of Nairobi. So yesterday we were talking about why we have low adoption of open science within our higher education institutes. And when we asked you to share your views, you came up with about 42 reasons why open science is not being adopted within your institutes. Now, some of the highlights that came up of this out of that session was those data integrity and security. Those low data integrity, there's a fear of data integrity and security. There's high article processing costs. There's little awareness on open science among higher education institute administrators. So basically what the administrators were saying, the aspects of open science relating to research and how it speaks to them into their lens rarely reaches their desk. When they get information about open science, really it is about open access, okay? And publishing, but not the greater aspect of open science and its connection to how it can help the university become competitive. So they want access to that information. There's poor attitude. I'm just sharing with you highlights of what we discussed yesterday. There's poor attitude towards open science, and there's time constraints associated with adopting open science practices. One thing that was very clear that came out was there's unclear structure and guidance as to how the institution should implement open science practices. So it's not very clear on how this needs to be done, and there's a need for support on how that can be done. So just check your chat. You'll have access to the link as well as I'm taking you through it. There is no incentives for researchers, and there's a need to have that conversation on what needs to be done in creating incentives for researchers. And staff in charge of institutional repositories are often lacking knowledge and expertise regarding copyright and open license practices. The library is not well capacitated to take open science to researchers, so there is need for increased open science capacity building on open science. And there is less concern about the needs and updating the system relating to open access and open science. So basically this was about infrastructural support. Some felt that they would be losing their profiles and their visibilities if they move from the traditional processes as compared to if they went the traditional ways of academic publishing as compared to open science. But that is why we are having this debate. And as I said, all concerns are valid. It's just an issue of making you understand and have a better awareness of how you can, a better awareness and understanding on what open science entails so that these fears can be assuaded. Incentives was a key issue because that is something that came out, that came out powerfully. Due to lack of funding, due to lack of funding or limited funding, some of the members felt that it is not easy to get into the process of open science. And yes, the reality is there'll be some expected expense involved, and with the limited budgets that universities have, they felt that this was a challenge for them. There is a need for national level and awareness and agreement in terms of incentivization and encouragement on the adoption of open science. This makes sense, and that is actually the purpose of today's meeting, because we are going to have our second speaker is going to talk to us about open science at a national level, especially what the South African government is trying to do, the need to make open science policy discussions multi-sectoral. So it's just not a higher education and STI conversation. So it's a multi-sectoral conversation. So that will be our second speaker. She will be taking us through what the South African government is doing and what we can learn from that as well. And those were the highlights. So as you can see, yes, there are challenges on open science that when it comes to adopting open science, but let's not ignore the fact that it is a noble endeavor that will definitely help in increasing the visibility of African research, improving the research output coming out of the continent. Yes, there will be unintended challenges and consequences, but the question is we need to learn from what has already, from those who have already adopted these practices. And at the end of the day, it's all about awareness, capacity building, and seeing how we can break those silos, because it's no longer a librarian's conversation, it is an administrator's conversation. It's a conversation that will need involvement by everyone in terms of understanding what open science entails, such that we can make informed decisions, and we can have not only informed decisions, but we can have informed discussions about open science, especially when you're talking about issues relating to IPR, because those are issues that came out yesterday. How are we going to protect our property, our IPR? How are we going to protect our data? There were concerns about peer review, open peer review, which still falls up under open science. How credible is that information? And also, how do we convince leadership to make open science part of their systems, such that it can support their academic community? So also the reality that came to fore was that we need to be considerate of the fact that we are looking at a generational aspect. Most of our leadership were already writing papers when we were going through traditional aspects, traditional ways of academic publishing. Open science and the progressive approaches to academic publishing are things that they also have to learn to adopt. So there's also that dynamic where they were already using traditional systems, and they're slowly trying to understand how these new dynamics in academic publishing would not only benefit them as researchers, but as administrators of their institute. As I'd said yesterday, when we are talking to vice chancellors, we need to understand that vice chancellors have to report to ministers of education. They have to report, depending on the country, they have to report to the president. So whatever decisions that they make in regards to adopting any policy that will be relevant to their institute, it needs to have an element of how it can support the university in becoming competitive, increasing its visibility. And these are things that we need to discuss when we're talking about that lens, especially to vice chancellors. We understand how it can support in research. We do understand that, but we also need to show vice chancellors how it can support them in building knowledge economies within the countries that they come from, but also becoming also competitive. Now, with that information, I want us to start today's session, and we are going to begin with today's speaker, and that is Ambassador Ali El Hefmi. He is the director of the Africa Egypt Center of the British University in Egypt. Over to you, sir. Please come and join us. Yes, you can see.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Dear participants, good morning. As Ms. Joy has said, introducing me, I am Ambassador Ali El Hefmi. I am director of the Egypt Africa Center at the British University in Egypt. It's one of 19 centers that we have at the university, most of which are scientific and technical centers. We have 11 faculties, different faculties. We are the #1 private university in Egypt for the last 5 years. And as I said, it's an Egyptian private university. And we are very happy that the organizers of this event are reaching you from here, from the British University in Egypt. So once again, it is a pleasure for the British University in Egypt to contribute to the organization of this workshop. Indeed, we would have wished to welcome more of you physically here at our campus, but it's a source of our satisfaction to see that you are participating virtually in important numbers. I was told that we had like at one time yesterday 120 followers through the internet, which is an important number. I am interested today, if you do allow me, to share with you something that we have witnessed 3 days ago. On October 24th, we hosted a forum on climate change at the British University in Egypt, with the participation of many academicians, scientists, scholars, and researchers. Also participated representatives of African leading institutions, such as the Association of African Universities, the African Academy of Science, the African Development Bank. International agencies participated as well, like the UNDP, the UNEP, the UN Habitat, the African and international academia were represented by universities from Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, also universities from Germany, the UK, and USA. Well, indeed, the climate change has become an existential challenge. I wouldn't exaggerate, and I am sure that you will agree with me, threat, in particular to us in Africa. And as we are the host of the coming COP27, which will be held as of the 7th of November onwards at the city of Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, we are hosting this big event with the presence of representatives at the highest level of all countries in the world. We're doing this exercise on behalf of Africa. As an African nation, we are hosting that big event. And we had, and we keep on having still, and until the beginning of the COP, so many forums, conferences, seminars, workshops that deal with different aspects of that issue, which is a #1 concern in Africa nowadays, because we are the region the most devastated because of the effects of the climate change. So we at the British University in Egypt could not be excluded from that exercise, and we were even pioneering. Just to give you an idea and to recall what our Vice Chancellor and Vice President of the University for Research and Enterprise has said when he addressed you yesterday morning he referred to the fact that we are the only Egyptian university that had a simulation, a COP27 simulation that lasted for 3 days. And we had students from the 4 corners of the globe, and mainly from African countries, a number of African countries that came and took part in this simulation. But let me go back to the forum that I referred to earlier. And let me say that the one that we have organized here at the British University in Egypt on October 24 on climate change, we and many others were of the opinion among the participants that we need to sustain such forums and meetings and ensure their regularity and periodicity. So it's not a unique event. It's not an only one-time event, but it's an event, a forum, technical sessions, whatever is the title. It will be sustained and held periodically, held on a yearly basis. We will be very happy at the British University to play the host of that forum again. We were also of the opinion that we need to have more interconnections among our higher education institutions in Africa, in particular, the scientific research centers, no matter how little they are. But we had that understanding that we need to have such an interconnection. And we need the most to open up towards each other and to focus more on our collective efforts in the field of innovation, and not to limit ourselves through joint researches, but also to try to have our joint projects. We indeed witnessed the participation of at that forum of stakeholders, that we need their assistance in such way that we could achieve such goals, but we have mainly to count on ourselves and believe in our capacity to work collectively and to create a more conducive academic environment in our continents, where we could exchange our experiences, our expertise, our data, our researches in an attempt to create the Africa that we all wish for, that we all dream of, and where we could pave the way for the correct and full implementation of our objectives that we have set for ourselves in the Africa Agenda 2063. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very good continuation and a fulfilling workshop. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and we'll get right into the meeting itself. And we will begin with Dr. Nokuthula Mchunu. She is the Deputy Director of the African Open Science Platform, and she is going to take us through what the AOSP is doing, but most importantly, what is happening in regards to the state of open science in South Africa and the policy process and the level they have reached. Over to you, Nokuthula. Would you like to switch on your video? Dr. Nokuthula? We can see your screen, but would you like to share your video? Please unmute. Dr. Mchunu? Yes.
Yes, Joy. Yeah, is that okay?
Good. Would you like your video on?
Because I'm in a meeting place, maybe not.
Not a problem. All right.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So over to you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so today I'm going to talk to you about South African take on policy and policy development in open science. So as Joy has introduced me, I come from the science platform, open science platform in South Africa. So our aim is to basically multiply and work with all the stakeholders to make sure that open science works with all the pillars. But today I will speak mostly to you about our experience in open science policy development in South Africa. So I will try to break it up into 3 different stakeholders, that is government, universities, and funders, which I'm coming from. So in South Africa, science policy development started a while back while the UNESCO recommendations were still in draft. So what had happened is that when this recommendation is still being worked in draft, so South Africa started having dialogue with the European partners to try and, because they had started this project around 2010. So when we were having these dialogues, there were some white papers and report that came out on what is required on science, on open science in South Africa, and what activities that could happen. So out of these dialogues, the South African draft open science policy is actually being released in 2022 this year, early this year. So there's been 2 dialogues already on it, and currently now is sitting at the ministry level for approval. And then after that, it will go for comment with the public. So it's been quite a good journey. So during this dialogue, I will discuss what has been some of the take-home messages, what is required to make this, to come to the stage of having a draft open science policy. Then you've had some of the universities in South Africa, also assisted by the universities of South Africa, where all the universities of South Africa belong to and report to. And then ASAF, our Academy of Science, so UCT has its own, started working at open science, and they come to understand, build on open science policy frameworks that they have before. So they have some of this document that they've worked through, but in universities, there's still a bit of wait and see to make sure that their policy speaks to the government policy. Then you have us, which is the Granting Council, the NRF, which is basically helps fund, or through the ministry funnels funding to university and other stakeholders that are involved in research. So we have what happened in 2015 when we had an open access policy first, where it was made through all our granting council, all our granting mechanisms, that if researchers apply to the NRF, they need to make sure that the journals or the peer review subscription should be in the institution repository if the institution has, and cannot have an embargo of more than 12 years of 12 months, or open access area should be provided. So this was clearly stated in any application on the data management plans within the granting system of the NRF. So while then the South African policy was being drafted or having stakeholder engagement, the NRF also decided to start and conceptualize its own framework on open science strategy, which as a granting council concentrated mostly on open access, open data, and open review and evaluations, because we do a lot of this in our grant. So we really don't concentrate a lot on infrastructure and other parts of open science, but we are concentrating a lot on open access and open data and open review and evaluation, which is very unique to the granting councils. So we already have a draft of this document, and we have consulted with the universities through USAF and other DVC research forums. We have done some external consultation with the Department of Science and Innovation and the GSI, Department of Science and Technology, and Department of Higher Education and Training. Right now, what is waiting is to make sure that we align ourselves with the current policy that is being drafted. So once that is finalized, then we will make sure ours speaks to the government policy. So this is our take that we have seen that this is happening with open science. We need to consider, in South Africa, we took a route where it was a new policy, not a policy amendment on open access or information is a completely new policy. So some people have suggested that amendments may be easier depending on your own situation. You can look at the policy that can speak to open science, which there are very few of them alike. So most likely many countries will go new policy development. University may amend open access policies, which is more or less speaks to each other. We've also discovered that through this exercise, while we were thinking that this open science policy will speak to Department of Science, Innovation and Higher Education and Training, we actually started saying when we talk of IP issues, then you have to think to bring into the discussion the Department of Trade, Economy, depending what is called in your country. We're also talking indigenous knowledge. We then have to look at another department which is entrusted with stewardship of this type of information. So in South Africa, we've got tourism, we have arts and culture. So this is the department we started talking to. So, but all of this policy, it talks to most of the things. It's data, it's publication, how we view it. These are some of the sub-pillars of it. Incentive in the policy are articulated to, and data stewardship in the policy, it has to be articulated to. So these are some of the lessons we take from policy development that we've had in South Africa. I will just take 2 minutes to air some things for our African stakeholders. We are looking for governing council for the open science platform. If you're interested, you can self-nominate or you can nominate somebody. The information is at our website and our other partner website. And also we are looking to expand into other regions of Africa. So we have made provision for 5 regional nodes. So again, this information is available on our website and all our partner website, and I will make them available to TCC Africa through Joy. Thank you for listening. I will take some questions.
Thank you so much, Nokuthula. I think what we will do is we'll just get right into the next speaker, then we can have the questions and answers. Is that okay?
It's okay, Joy, but I may disappear, but I will try to answer the questions as best as I can, or people can also put them on the chat. I will try to answer.
Okay, then in that case, then let's just let's get straight to it and ask the participants to share their questions. So are there any questions for Dr. Nokuthula? She's taken us through what the South African government is doing in regards to preparing for the open science policy, the level it has reached, the multi-sectoral aspect of it, and why there's a need to have a multi-sectoral engagement when you're drafting an open science policy. Are there any questions or comments? You can raise your hands or put it in the chat. Any questions? Okay, there's a question in regards to the expression of interest. So could you give more information about it? The details on where to submit the expression of interest that you just shared, Dr. Nokuthula? They should submit it to me, but all the details are on the web link. I will paste it on the chat. Okay. It's been put in the chat. That is Olu. Any other question? Any question or comments in regards to, you see, you remember yesterday you were saying that there's a need to have national policy. There is Teferi, and there are two questions coming in. What is the most difficult part about implementing the policy? Dr. Nokuthula? What is the most difficult part about implementing the policy, and how did you start on the development of the policy?
Yes,
Those are the two questions.
Yes, so if you see what we did with the dialogue, so it has taken almost 3 years to come to a draft with a lot of dialogues with partners. So we had a lot of dialogues with partners who had experience with some type of making documents or policies for open science. And after that, the government had appointed a panel, but you had a lot of stakeholder engagement to make sure that the first draft came in place. I remember when the first draft came to be, when we had a public discussion among the more active stakeholders. I think we had nearly 500 people. And you could see that it had a lot of input. There were a lot of things that different people saw that they were lacking. And then they had to go back again and produce the second draft and then come back again. And I think the second draft was more, I think with open science, the more stakeholders you have, the much better. So this draft is going to be approved, we hope. But I think implementation will take a long time to have a good implementation. But at least when you have a draft policy and you see how it works with different stakeholders, does it work for the education? Is it working for the innovators? Is it working for trade? So everybody will probably be envisaging teething problems of this. But again, government will have to provide some incentives that will go with the policy, because you can't have a document without the mechanism to implement the policy. So we will yet to see this, but our department have been shown willingness to make sure that this goes as according to plan as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Nokuthula. Now, the next, I have a question for you, and the question is,
sorry.
No, I have a question for you, Dr. Nokuthula.
Hello.
Please mute, sir, please mute. If you're not speaking, please mute. Okay. Dr. Nokuthula, I have a question for you in regards to the challenges that you faced and what have you learned from when you're preparing to put the open science policy? Where did you learn from? Where did you get the case studies from? Which experiences were you using? Were they from a continental perspective? Were you looking at it from a European perspective? Just take us through some of the case studies you used in putting that guided you in putting the policy together, and what are the challenges that you observed that countries that had already implemented such policies had faced, and what have you done in trying to avoid that within the current one that you're trying to put together for South Africa? Did you understand the question?
Yes. Can you hear me, Joy?
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, very clearly.
Yeah. So for the lack of having a lot of experience in Africa with this, we did consult quite a bit with EOSC. If we understand EOSC position on open science policy, but this discussion, I think we took what is needed as the basic framework, and we saw that yes, these are needed, but on South African perspective, it just will be very different how those pillars are entrenched in the policy. So when the policy develop like infrastructure, so how we work infrastructure in South Africa will be a little bit different how they speak to it in Europe. and what are the needs of infrastructure, because again, you have to speak to access, bandwidth, which in Europe, they do not speak to this, and government has to show this works, not just basic infrastructure. And you have to speak to a lot of capacity building inside policy. So there are a lot of things that need to be contextualized in different settings. So each country really can have a template for the basic pillars, but it's not a plug and play. Let's be honest about this. It's not going to be a plug and play. And I think the most important lessons that we took, it is a multi-sectoral. A lot of consultation is required to get a working document, and you must accept that it's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to take us a while to get to that perfect or cohesive policy. It needs to be used first and see where are the shortfalls.
So there's a question from Professor Ahmed Kadri Bahloul, and he's asking, regarding the national policy, is there a component that covers open source software? And if they can give us more information about it.
Yes, it covers open source software as generic and for users. But if there are any, this is why I said, then the Department of Trade talks to open software, IP, and all those issues. So I'm not an expert to that, but it has all this component built to it, and what other users will be required to do, and what are the implications for using the open source software.
So there is a hand raised by Tendai. Tendai, you have a question? Tendai, your hand is raised. Do you have a question in regards?
Yes. I have a question. I have a question for Noktula. Okay, I'm a postgrad student at the University of Pretoria, and my question is, given that this is an open science policy, and you come from the background of the National Research Fund, and we all understand that open science is changing the way science is being done or is being communicated. How does this policy speak to, or does it introduce any new ways of assessing research outputs? Are we going to see some shifts or some tweaking into the way, let's say, the National Research Fund assesses researchers or research outputs and products within the research cycle?
Yes, Tendai, I think it's clear, as I've said before, some of the basic pillars in my last slide to show that incentives which are related to reward and promotion and progression needs to change how, in order to have researchers participate in open science. So this then speaks to assessment of input and impact by researchers. The policy speaks to this clearly. It's one of the most important things that we discuss in details by most stakeholders from universities and other research institutes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Mchunu. That has been a very, Tendai, you still have another question?
No, thank you.
Okay, that's a legacy hand. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Mchunu, for making time to take us through today's session. Now, our next speaker is coming all the way from the Netherlands, and this is Professor Raffles Ismail, and he is the senior researcher for the Center for Science and Technology Studies, that is CWTS, in Leiden University, and he's also an associate fellow in the University of Sussex. Now, one of the things we were discussing yesterday was how is open science going to help universities gain competitiveness? And one of the things when you look at universities, and we can't ignore it, honestly, we truly cannot ignore it, is rankings, okay? And when you're looking at rankings, some of the metrics used to, the traditional metrics that are used to rank, to show performance of the universities have been helpful to the top tier universities, but not necessarily helpful to the bottom tier or middle tier universities. And that is why, even though we are pushing for open science, we know that open science will help in democratizing the higher education sector. So knowing very well that it's going to democratize the higher education sector, we need to also ask ourselves, what kind of metrics should we include within university rankings? What kind of metrics should we be aware of when it comes to measuring performance and assessment of universities, especially when it comes to the competitive, when you're looking at it from a competitive nature? Because the reality is, as much as we are pushing for open science, when you're talking to vice chancellors, you're talking to leadership, they'll ask one question, and it's something I've been emphasizing throughout between yesterday and today. How will it make us competitive? How can open science help us also through if it will aid us in being competitive, how will it help us adopt getting more students? Because the competitive nature, and at the end of the day, brings in more students, brings in collaboration. It brings in collaboration, it increases internationalization, all these aspects that are key to any university administrator. So it comes back to numbers, it comes down to metrics that are being used. Is open science, and even one of the pillars of open science, in this case, open access, going to be added as one of the metrics in rankings? What I know is that the webometric ranking, most of us in Africa are using webometrics rankings. Open access is actually one of open access, which is a pillar of open science, is one of the metrics in that ranking. So they do have open access in it. So knowing very well that it's already been included, will there be greater pillars of open science being included? Will there be other ways of assessment be included that fall under open science that will be added within these rankings? What should we look out for? What should we be wary of? Okay, what should we be aware of? And this is why we felt having somebody who is in the heart of this conversation, who is involved in research, especially when it comes to the matrices that are being used for rankings, coming from a university that actually created the Leiden rankings for universities, is somebody who can guide us on trying to look at the realities on the ground in regards to rankings, some of the challenges, why we should also push for open science as one of the metrics, and open science, or even aspects of open science, whether it's open access, open data, open assessment, as one of the metrics in rankings, and what we should be wary of. So basically, it is an issue of being aware of what is happening on the ground, and let's not be blind to the fact that, and this is for everyone, we need to understand that universities need to be competitive. We are adopting open science, and we need to ask ourselves, because part of today's exercise is, how can we help the universities in adopting open science? Yesterday, we were talking about the challenges, but how can we help them adopt open science? How can we work with the administrators in making them adopt open science? So having this conversation with Professor Raffles will give us a good idea, especially when you're looking at how open science can support universities in becoming competitive, and how they can actually be adopted within the rankings as well. So over to you, Professor Raffles, and please share your screen.
Thanks so much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here. And so thank the Association of African Universities, the Training Center in Communication, PLOS, and the British University in Egypt for organizing the event, and Joy for inviting me. Let me see if I manage to share the screen. Here we are. And I'm going now to full presentation, but not the right slide. Okay, so can you please confirm that you see?
Yes, we can see you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Excellent. Good. So I'm going to have these discussions about open science university rankings. As Joy mentioned, my center, the Center for Science and Technology Studies at the University of Leiden, produces a ranking. And we have made
Professor Raffles? Professor Raffles? It is here. Professor Raffles?
Discussion yesterday where that university management is not considering, it's not taking enough or seriously enough open science. And second, research assessment is a major hurdle for the uptake of open science. This was just mentioned by the professor in the previous presentation. Why is that? Well, the reasons I believe why university management is not taking open science so as seriously as they should, maybe at the moment, is because their notion, when worried about attracting students, they're concerned about prestige. And the prestige, they see it as coming from the traditional university rankings. It's the same applies for individual researchers. They're concerned about the reputation of their scientific contributions, which is understood as being focused on the traditional output publications. Now, the case that I'm going to make is that they are short-sighted in focusing in the traditional university rankings and in focusing only in publications, because these are old-fashioned notions of prestige. These narrowly academic notions of prestige are something of the 20th century. And in the 21st century, the prestige and performance is adopting more dimensions, which go in the directions signaled by open science, which is about the importance of collaboration, the importance of making societal contributions, particularly in the direction of the sustainable development goals. So it's not only open science the right thing to do, but if you are interested in your university to be doing very well in the rankings, not now, but 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, you should be looking at these other dimensions of prestige and performance that are related to societal contributions, to collaborations with societal stakeholders. Let's start by looking at what traditional rankings do, which are narrowly focused on, I would think, it's global north prestige. So we have the time higher education, academic ranking of world universities, the QS ranking. Many of them, you see that they have citations as a very important dimension. Now, in the case of the Times Higher Education, citations represent 30% of the weighting of the ranking. Now, we know that citations are biased. And moreover, they're biased towards the countries that have better coverage in the databases. And we know that, you know, the perceptions of how good a university or a research is doing in terms of citations also has influence in the perception of reputation in research and in teaching. So actually, although the Times Higher Education, as is shown here, has these different dimensions of quality, the fact that reputation survey for teaching, reputation survey for research and citations make more than 50% of the weighting means that they are heavily biased towards the traditional notions of prestige as purely academic. And why are these notions of prestige so biased? Not only because of historical biases associated with colonial and post-colonial history, but also because the databases are extremely biased, as the librarians attending these workshops surely know. So here I have data produced by my colleague Ludo Waldman, Martin Weiss, and Jan Van Eck, in which they show that even Scopus, which is more comprehensive than the Web of Science, only has 27 million papers out of the 73 million papers that are available, that have been published, and that can be captured with a more comprehensive database such as Microsoft Academic. Now, the 50 million papers that are missing here are not equally distributed across the world. If you look at the coverage of journals by continent, and this was a study that was done by my former PhD student, Diego Chavarro, the University of Sussex, you see that the coverage of the publications published in Northern Europe or North America is around 40–50% in Scopus, whereas in the case of Africa or Latin America or Asia, we are somewhere between 10 and 20%. Therefore, with this much higher coverage of the publications in the global north, it is not surprise that reputation is seen from academic citations is biased towards the north. So basically, the main indicators used by the currently dominant university rankings are biased, and they do not do justice to the diverse functions, missions of research. We have this sentence from research evaluator David Dresner to say, well, it's actually easier to use indicators which are out there than to think what are the goals that in universities should try to accomplish. And this is a problem because if we use existing indicators without thinking about the biases and the types of functions that they are measuring, what we end up, as it is explaining in this article by George Sten and Leslie Chan, is that we end up being driven by the values that are behind the metrics, or by the biases that are behind the metrics. In the case of this prestige and indicators used in the current university rankings, we are driven by a logic of prestige that it's not paying justice to the many different missions that universities have. This is now being recognized in Europe by a very strong movement towards reforming research assessment. The European Commission put a document in the end of 2021, last year, asking for a coalition of organizations willing to engage in reforming their research assessment. This has been an extraordinary success, unexpectedly most of the top funding organizations and top university associations have joined. Currently, there were about 350 organizations included in debating a set of principles that should inform research assessment for research assessment to be more truthful to the goals of universities, in which you can find the full information in this website. And there are 4 key commitments. The first 3 commitments are about not overusing indicators more at the individual level. And the first commitment is very clear about avoiding the use of rankings of research organizations in research assessment. And by rankings, I mean the traditional rankings. So there is at the moment in Europe, and as I understand also in other continents such as Latin America with CLACSO, the Latin American Social Science Research Council, being critical about rankings. Now, trying to answer the question posed by David Rosner. Okay, so if indicators should not be taken as the answer, if we have to think what the universities should accomplish, then we should ask, what are universities for? And then we come, of course, to the simple answer that the important contribution of universities is teaching the students the capabilities needed in society in a variety of fields, and generating new knowledge that is useful in society, either for curiosity issues. So I understand that a sun eclipse or a moon eclipse is something that is interesting for the public. I do wake up at 4 in the mornings sometimes to go and see the marvel of looking at how the moon has an eclipse. So this is important, but also for solving problems that are more related to societal needs. And this is where I think that open science can be a guidance. And I asked Anna Pershik from UNESCO yesterday if she could share this slide, in which she showed yesterday that the potential of open science is about introducing new notions of quality, about telling us that science can contribute to fill innovation gaps, and that open science can help in supporting research towards addressing sustainable development goals. The presentation by Rohina yesterday from PLOS also mentioned the importance of the credit system towards recognizing the different types of contributions of researchers. What this is telling us is that open science can help us in thinking what are the dimensions in university rankings that should be considered. And this is what we are going to see in this next section. The UNESCO recommendation on open science, I think it's really clear and really nice in making explicit the core values and guiding principles of open science, where in traditional university rankings, we just have notions of prestige, abstract notions of prestige, in the UNESCO recommendation on open science, we see that the values that would guide the prestige are made explicit. And the core values are about science for the collective benefit. So science as a global public good. The importance of integrity, that the knowledge produced is reliable and is useful and beneficial for society. The importance that knowledge is made in a way that is equitable, that includes diverse population as the beneficiaries, and also in terms of diversity and inclusiveness, that different communities participate in making this knowledge. So these principles are in a way or help make specific the type of recommendations that were put by the San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment, or the Leiden Manifesto, of which I am one of the co-authors, in which almost 10 years ago already, we criticized the traditional ways of assessing, and we proposed that you could not use always the same indicators, but you needed to use indicators in a contextual manner, according to the understanding of the context of a given expert. And above all, you needed the 2 and 3 principles that you need to measure performance against the missions of the institution. Now, the missions of the institution, of institutions such as university, differ depending on the type of university. I have worked for a polytechnic university, and of course, a polytechnic university has a mission that is much more related to supporting the local development, for example, in agriculture or also in industry, which is related to the third point, which is about excellence in locally relevant research. So the open science is a guide. The ideas of an open science is a guide about what type of missions and what type of functions are needed to be considered. And for this also, and this is again the dimensions of the UNESCO recommendation on open science, we see that there are a variety of dimensions that might contribute to quality. On the one hand, there are the traditional scientific publications, which need to be made openly accessible, but also contributions to knowledge can come in the form of data, of research data, in the form of open educational resources, of software, of open hardware. So rather than just focusing in the outputs that are publications, we see that there are different types of outputs that are relevant. And therefore, there is the case for university rankings to consider to which extent universities might be contributing to research data, to educational resources. There is also a part which is about open science infrastructures. So whether, and this might be more the case for national centers, maybe than for universities. So whether the research infrastructure is open. The UNESCO recommendation on open science, I think, made an important contribution in highlighting that not only these green and pink dimensions of outputs and infrastructure are important, but also issues around collaboration are equally crucial for open science to thrive. And important, maybe the most important among these are the participation of citizens and stakeholders in the development of science. It is now widely agreed that in order for research to become a benefit for society, it is crucial that the stakeholders participate in informing what type of knowledge is needed. And then there is also the issue of the dialogue between different knowledge systems here in blue. So one thing that let me stress again, I think it's crucial about the UNESCO recommendation open science is the emphasis in open science, not just as outputs or infrastructure, but as collaborative practices between academic institutions and societal actors. In summary, open science can lead to the increased visibility and impact of those dimensions of research that so far had been less visible and that are not captured by the traditional notions of prestige, which I think, and you might agree with this, tend to be biased towards the global north. So it is in this context that universities such as ours are developing new dimensions in the university rankings. This is beginning to happen. In our case, we introduced the open access dimension maybe 3 years ago, and the gender dimension maybe 2 years ago. So what we did is we added a dimension, for example, on gender. So here you have, if you go to the website, by just typing Leiden ranking of universities, you'll find there are a variety of dimensions. Here you can find different indicators, and one of the indicators is gender, which again is perceived as an extremely important dimension for research to contribute to society. And here I picked up, in the case of Africa, which were the universities with a higher percentage of women researchers. Another dimension is collaboration. And here we have Makerere University, the university of one of the speakers yesterday, as being very collaborative. These are academic collaborations. I hope that in the future we will be able to have data as well on collaborations with societal organizations or with policy, which would allow us to see rankings, would allow us to see the contributions of universities towards societal contributions or to policy. Another of the dimensions is open access. Of course, here it is also important to see whether what type of open access it is, whether it is open access based in gold, based on diamond, which is in a way fairer, or whether in green. So there might be, we actually, if you go to the open access, there are different types of open access. And we are not the only university rankings makers which are moving in this direction. So Curtin University in Australia has this initiative on open knowledge, in which they are also collecting statistics on open access. And here we see the host of this meeting, the British University in Egypt, as being one of the leaders in open access in the region. But you say, well, but you know, the University of Leiden and Curtin universities, they are public sector universities, that they might, you know, with commercial providers, things might be different. But actually, if you look at what commercial providers are doing in the last 3 years, and it's only been in the last 3 years, you will see that they are also moving in the directions of taking in considerations the dimensions included in open science. In this case, that you see at the Times Higher Education introduced 3 years ago what they call the impact rankings, where you can see the contributions, the rankings of universities according to the different SDGs. Maybe I should add that while I think that it is a good initiative to include the SDGs in the rankings, I am extremely critical with this particular ranking of Times Higher Education, in the sense that the indicators that they include are extremely problematic in my view. But they're not the only ones. Data providers of publications are now including filters that allow to see you which publications are related to which sustainable development goals. You can see it for those not having access to Web of Science or Scopus sophisticated versions, as it is my case. You can see it in dimensions, which for individual researchers, it's openly accessible. And you will see that on the left-hand side, there is a click which allows to filter by SDGs. And a variety of organizations, the Dutch Association of Universities, some consultancies like Cities Academics are also moving in this direction. And my institute has contributed to a project for the United Nations Development Program that was just launched last week, and that made it to the Nature editorial just yesterday, in which the Nature editorial congratulates us, and forgive me for taking the credit, but just, you know, as a way of showing in directions where things are moving, they sort of supported this initiative, this project, which analyzed what is the contribution of research to the Sustainable Development Goals, which is one of the way of, you know, making statistics that can be transformed in rankings about how higher education organizations or research centers are contributing towards making knowledge a global public good. Another very recent initiative, last week, it was launched by the International Network of Research Management Societies, is the Modern Hour rank, in which they encourage universities to make a statements next to the rankings explaining how their organization is contributing to society or to education in ways that are not necessarily well captured by rankings. So in conclusion, current university rankings are only reflect a small part of the contributions of the university. The dimensions included in open science, on the contrary, help in making visible the various purposes and missions of universities, and the purposes might differ by university. Open science may thus help in making visible contributions that so far have not been visible in the university rankings. And this is not something that it's for the future in 20 years. This change from narrowly academic prestige in the global north rankings towards much more multidimensional and societally engaged university rankings is a transition that it's happening already. Timescale Education started 3 years ago. The main database providers are already giving information. So it's something that it's beginning to happen. And in order to be competitive in 5-10 years' time, I believe that it's important for universities to move in these directions. And I will leave it here. Many thanks for the attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Raffles. Are there any questions? Are there any? Thank you so much. That was very, very, very informative. It was very informative. Are there any questions for Professor Raffles? Okay. Is a raised hand? Yeah, please go ahead, Isaac.
Yeah, can the professor show us his email address to be in contact with him in this regard, if possible?
Absolutely, that can be organized. Any other questions? You remember, Tendai, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for an eye-opening presentation. My question goes to, you alluded to the importance of citizen science as part of open science, and it's an important criteria where the public needs to gain advantage of science. The issue is how can the public be best served in terms of research that is understandable or scalable to their levels of interpretation? How does the whole framework work in that regard?
Let me see if I understood well the question. That it is how can citizens participate in science, given that research is usually difficult to understand for those in the narrow area? Is that the question?
Yes. Beyond those beyond the scholarly communication ecosystem. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of the challenges posed by open science, right? How can researchers communicate? It is a problem. I mean, it is a difficulty, but that's something that it's being done. And for example, it's just a question of, for researchers, and it doesn't need to be every researcher, but maybe one person in a big team, learning to communicate the ideas to the wider audiences. So, for example, one of the areas in which there has been more awareness of the importance of citizen science has been in health, right? It has been demonstrated that the contributions of patients help in making medical knowledge more useful. So in proposals, some funding agencies, for example, in the UK, have made part of the proposal, especially addressed to the lay to the lay people. So they are asked at the proposal level already to write it in such a way that citizens can understand it and can judge whether that proposal is likely to benefit the patients. So it's something that needs to be learned, but definitely it's something that has been done. And I believe in the case of agriculture, there is also a long tradition of experts who have knowledge in engaging with the farmers directly. I hope this answered your question.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Yeah, I get it. Thank you for your presentation.
Any other questions? Are there any other questions yes, Isaac? Yes.
Thanks for the opportunity, Prof. That was an insightful presentation. I really enjoyed your presentation. Yeah, so my question is beyond the ranking. Yeah, in your own few words, in summary, what should universities focus on beyond the ranking?
So can you repeat again? Beyond ranking, what should be?
What should be the sole focus of universities and research institutions?
I think it really depends on the organization. So, for example, 5 years ago, I lived in Valencia, you know, a town in the east of Spain, west of the Mediterranean. It has two big universities. One is a polytechnic university, which is where I worked. The other was the traditional generalist university. So I think what should be asked for the two universities is rather different. So the Polytechnic University should have dimensions of assessment. They should be doing very well in relation to technology transfer, in relation to collaborating with local communities, with local companies, which it does actually. Whereas the generalist university, which has sociology and economics, should be doing a good job in terms, for example, in the dimensions of interactions with policy. So I think it's extremely important to think that different higher education organizations would need different rankings. And this is why it's important to have rankings with many dimensions.
I think it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Any other question or comment? Yes, Tendai, you have another question. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Prof, you brought in the dimension of collaborations as one criteria that should be considered. How, in your opinion, how do you see the impact of open science on the future of research collaborations across between the global south and the global north?
I think, well, let's begin first with collaborations in general. I think in the case of open science, in the open science agenda, there is a very strong emphasis in engagement with societal actors, and also in dialogue with other knowledge systems. And this a strong emphasis in the engagement of societal actors, I think responds, and this is my reading, it's not in the documents, to the worry that some universities have become ivory towers and too detached from the needs of society. And that therefore, it is important that higher education interacts with societal actors in order to find again good reasons why and good topics for doing research. There's an article which I like very much by Daniel Sadovitz, which is called Saving Science, in which he argues that collaborations with societal actors is a way of infusing good questions into science. So rather than being seen collaboration with societal actors as a way, as something that hinders, that puts a brake in the speed of research, rather researchers should be thinking of collaborations as one of the ways of finding really good questions rather than being lost in Byzantine discussions, which are purely abstract. And regarding, and this might be also relevant in terms of the North-South in relations. So I think we are all aware that the distribution of research resources in the world is extremely unequal. I didn't put the statistics, but according to the Web of Science, something like 80% of the research is carried out in high-income countries. 17% of publications come from upper middle-income countries, and the rest from lower middle-income countries and less income countries and low-income countries. So this means that the attention of problems is biased towards the problems in the North. And this is a serious problem. That's something that is discussed at length at the report that I mentioned in the end. Let me see if I can, if you go to, I'll put later on the link to the report. It's the Strings report made by the University of Sussex in collaboration with UCL in London and sponsored by the British government with the support of the United Nations Development Programme, and we participated as well. In that report, there is discussion of the importance of global North collaborations, both at the academic level and across and together, as well as with societal organizations, because of the lack of attention to societal issues that happen in the Global South in research.
Okay. I've seen a comment from Dr. Stephen Dungu, and he says that open science should also thrive to involve scientists who are contributors to science through journals. This title seems to target universities only. Okay, Stephen, I'll answer that. Because we were working with the Association of African Universities, we were targeting higher education institutional leaders, but we are also working as a center. We are also working with the regional supra bodies that supranationals rather, that are also regulators of research. So the research councils in East Africa, we are working with the East African Commission for Science and Technology. And under that, of course, it brings in all the national research councils. So yes, the conversation we are having on open science in the continental level is really at a research institution and the higher education level. The reason why we brought in Dr. Mchunu to talk about policy, because that is covering at a national level, which includes both that includes universities and research councils. I hope I've been able to answer that question. Okay, now we are, yes, Collins, you have a question before we get into the group session. Collins, over to you.
Oh, greetings. Quite an interesting discourse, deliberation there. Very informative, and I think Prof and the team would like to applaud you for that, opportunity to help us cross-fertilize our mental faculties on issues to do with open access. I would want to know, how can we use open access to democratize access to information, scholarly information, and also to promote sort of like an egalitarian, is it possible to promote an egalitarian model for global access to information, so that we change the dialectical relationship between the global south and the north? Maybe we as scholars, we could succeed where politicians fail. Maybe we got the magic, suppose we got the magic bullet to be more successful than, where politicians fail. What's your opinion on this perspective on ensuring that this open access phenomenon does not end up being more of a, like maybe you're talking of collaborations, and I understand that collaborations should be based on maybe what you can call parabiotic, not parasitic relationships. And also, how can we make sure that some of these relationships do not end up being like some form of a dispossession of the already dispossessed in terms of the coloniality of knowledge?
Yeah, I share these concerns. I am actually extremely critical at the way the European Commission was handling the open access policies, and the plans of the European Commission on open access policies, I thought was very, very problematic. And so I see the gold open access as not the solution, quite the contrary, as creating problems. So I work on research evaluation. The issue about infrastructure for open access is beyond my comfort zone. I do not have the solution, but I agree that the current situation is extremely problematic, because open access, instead of democratizing science, seems to be having the opposite effect. It democratizes, on the one hand, access, but on the other hand, it is creating an exclusion of some researchers. And I have to say, this is not only happening between the global north and the global south, but also within the global north. If you go to a university in Romania, or in in some parts of Spain, they will not be able to pay the fees for gold open access. So even within the north, that it is creating inequalities. So I'm afraid I don't have the answer, but I agree that this is a very serious issue, in that we need to make initiative, probably led from the scientific community, that overcome the current institutional policies, which, in my view, were too influenced by the interest of the publishing houses.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Now we are getting into our group session. We are really on time, and I want to give you 20 minutes. We have 10 group sessions, and what I want us to discuss. Yesterday we were discussing the challenges and what the challenges we were facing within our institutes in regards to adopting open science within our respective institutes. Now today we are done with the complaining bit. What I need us to do, and I'm saying that because we know what the problem is. Now, what we need to do is ask ourselves, with our respective roles within the university, how are we going to, what are the next steps and what are the possible causes of actions we need to do in order to support the leadership in adopting open science with our respective institutions. You have access to the link. Just look at that link in the chat. We are going to break you up into groups. And what we've done is that we've got 4 subtitles, and we want you to start filling. You have access to it. We want you to start filling it and tell us, what do you think you feel can be done to contribute to supporting leadership in adopting open science? What do you think needs to be done in regards to having improved rewards and incentive systems within the institution so that it can be used to encourage the adoption of open science within your institute? And all of you raised concerns about research integrity and ethics. So tell us, what do you need emphasized on within aspects of research and ethics such that we are able to have the leadership within the institute comfortable when we are saying that we want to adopt open science? So what do we need to factor in that aspect? And then it comes to education and skills. You mentioned this as a concern. There is a need for increased education, but in what areas? Who needs that support in terms of education and skills? And how do we need to go about it? So I'll give you 20 minutes within your groups. I'm putting you into the group breakout sessions. So you all have access to this link. Please confirm all of you have this link. And like yesterday, please identify one person who is going to represent you when you're having this conversation. I hope you've understood the assignment. I'm giving you 20 minutes. Get into your breakout sessions, and we are ready to get into the solutions that we can come up with in regards to this challenge. Okay, welcome everybody, and we are getting into the last session of the 2-day workshop. And now what we've come up with is some of the solutions that we could come up with, or rather the course of actions that we would take in supporting the leadership in adopting open science. I've seen in the document that you filled in quite a number of recommendations, which you're going to take a very good, keen interest in, and we'll share them with you. But before we highlight some of those recommendations that you've proposed, I'd like each group to share with us just highlights of what they found out, what next steps they propose in supporting leadership in adopting open science. Group 1, who is going to represent you? Group 1, who is going to represent you? In Group 1, we had Esther, Felicitas, Ismail, Ketema, Moline, Petronila, and Scholastica. Who is going to represent you?
Well, Ketema will represent the group.
There you go, sir.
Okay. Well, we had a very detailed discussion on the issue of this open access. We had a lot of input from team members, including Professor Raphael and colleagues from Kenya and others. So the major issue emphasized in this room discussion is concerning the leadership. The university leadership should usually focus or give emphasis onto the issue of budgeting, like for example, research budget. But before that, the university leadership should have a very clear understanding of what this open access policy is all about, and also have sufficient information on its relevance, like the issue we had today, even for ours. We have very clear information from the presentation, so they should also have the same information, then come up with clear understanding of the policy. We also mentioned the importance of allocating right budget for the research. Research should not be done only for the sake of research, but also has to be conducted as to solve the problems, and also it has to be to the standard. The researchers should also have research capacity, capacitating the research as to how to even conduct the research, pinpointing the right problems, and then go for publication. Publication by itself also needs understanding on how to go for very outstanding preparation of a standard manuscript, and then go for the right journal. Okay. Dissemination, Professor also stressed here among our members, the major challenge for researcher is publishing their data, but most of the journals are now requesting for article processing charge. Therefore, there is also means to skip this charge through going submitting publication like publishing in repositories or archiving on standard journals. Concerning the incentive section, there are a lot of information actually that the members forwarded. Concerning the incentives, it's also good to motivate the researchers once they publish, giving recognition for outstanding researchers, publishers, and also certifying the researchers. There are a lot of information actually gathered here, and I think the major point are what I tried to mention in addition to what's listed here. If I meet some, the team members can also enrich that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The team members, you can add anything that is missing in the Google document. Room 2, who is going to be a representative? Room 2, we had Adam, Aisata, Daniel, Grace, Mojabeng, Moses, Muhumuza. Who is going to represent you? Who is going to represent room 2? All right, we'll go to room 3. Room 3, we had Chifundo, Hanan, Hilde Blande, I hope I got that right. Horace, Kelemwok, Olebogeng, and Stephen. Who is going to represent you? Room 3. Who is going to represent room 3? Okay, so we'll just go straight to room 4. We have to be very conscious of time. And in the meantime, all of you, please be putting in your recommendations and course of actions in the Google Doc. This is why we needed to have the Google Doc, so that everything would go simultaneously. Room 4, we have Daisy, Galefele, Julius, Ahmed, Rose, and Teferi. Who is going to represent you?
Ahmed.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Joy. It was good opportunity for the group to discuss the solution, the actions, because without actions, there is no change. For this reason, I very much thank you for your design for the today discussion group, and we are consider the standards of our discussion will lead with concentrate on leadership, rewards and incentives, research integrity, ethics and legal issues, and education and skills. For the first standard, or what we call it, the first standard, leadership, we propose that the Vice Dean of graduate studies with the head of academic departments should have the lead with support, with a great support or sincere support of the dean of the faculty. This is on the faculty level, but on the higher level, like university or ministerial level, the corresponding levels must support the faculty level. Regarding the second standard, which is rewards and incentives, we propose that we have to add a positive incentives to encourage the faculty members to participate effectively on promoting open science practices. This may be in terms, in monetary terms or in non-monetary terms. The third standard, we call it the third standard, research integrity, ethics, and legal issues. We think that we have to add condition for faculty members' promotion rules to include the level of participation or effective, active level of participation or the level of effective participation in open science activities as an important item in promotion of the faculties. The last standard, which is education and skills, we think, we agree that we have to incorporate open science activities in academic programs, teaching activities, and assessment. I am asking my colleague if they wanted to add something I forgot to add. Please go ahead. Thank you to you, Joy, and TCC Africa. Thanks.
Thank you so much. For the group members, if you want to add anything, please kindly add it into the Google Doc. Please share your views into the Google Doc. Thank you, sir, for your views. Room 5, we had Abednego, Aliyu, Chinyere, Dorothy, Famao, Ferhat, Jackton, and Tebogo. Who is going to be your representative, Group 5?
All right, I'll be the one representing my group.
Okay, please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. So for leadership, we're able to propose that leaders of institutions should be able to engage with their staff, discuss with them, and this same staff should also have some attitude towards change, the ability to adapt to changes as times are going, changing, things are changing. So members, researchers should be able to adapt to changes. Then leaders too, leaders of research institutions like the Vice Chancellor should be able to allocate research grants or source for research grants. Researchers, they should encourage researchers in their institution to source for research grants in order to improve the institutional ranking too. So we also propose that awareness and need to train researchers. It is the responsibility of the leaders of research institutions to be able to train their researchers. Then under leadership too, one important thing we talked about was disseminating information. So if there are information and they decide to keep it in their shelves or on their tables without disseminating it to other members of the institution, that information will be there and it will be still. And so we are proposing that disseminating of information should be a priority in institutions, especially for leadership. Then we move down to infrastructure. So for my group, we're able to discuss that labs should be well equipped because researchers now are changing and things are changing. And so we need to move with the trend of novel research. And so if our labs are not well equipped, we'll be lacking behind. And so we are proposing that labs should be well equipped in order to encourage researchers. So for reward and incentives, for us, we said award and recognition for outstanding researchers in order to motivate them and also motivate those who are not doing well to be able to do well. So they should be rewarded, they should be given incentive, they should be at least recognized. Then the last, is it the last one? Okay, under research integrity, so adaptation to novel researches. So if we're reading Wild, we should know that researches are changing, time methods are changing, there are improvements in science, for instance. And so we should be able to adapt to new research methodology, novel areas, and also collaboration with other researchers. So for us, we are proposing that collaboration with researchers from within the same institution or even with other countries or other institutions should be encouraged. Then lastly, under education and skills, we agreed that we'll be proposing constant training and workshop on the use of laboratory equipment and also even statistical analysis, different areas of research. The researchers need to be trained on this. Thank you very much. This is what I have.
Please stop sharing your screen because please stop sharing your screen.
I'm not the one sharing. Am I the one sharing?
Who is sharing their screen? Kindly stop. Stop sharing your screen. It is Mohammed. Mohammed Edward, please stop sharing your screen. Mohammed, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, group 6. We had Bamadile, Bongiwe, Marjane, Moline, Olu, Temitope, and Ulingeta. Who is representing your group?
Moline here, I will represent our group.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, on issues to do with research and integrity, we talked about copyright and common licenses, and we were able to discover that a lot is not known about common license. For example, the Creative Commons has like 6 types of licenses, and some of them do not allow for reproducing the work, which sometimes we do. And then when we, for example, you cite, and then you end up modifying the work, whereas the Creative Commons license does not allow for modifying the work. And normally what happens is your plagiarism test will be higher, and most people are not aware of this. So we are saying, can we educate people on these licenses so that they know how they are being used? Another thing that we talked about is the issue of marketing the research and how the research needs to be marketed. If you're going to use open access, then is it going to be able to market the researchers as well? And another issue that we talked about is the issue of the impact factor. And you'll realize that the impact factor focuses a lot on the entire document, that is the entire journal. And most times you'll find that journals that have been in existence for many years tend to have a higher impact factor. Alternatively, we are suggesting that why can't we use citations instead? Because citations focus a lot on the individual author, and also the issue of availability for access of the research work. So, and then you'll find that the old journals are more indexed, unlike the young journals. So the focus is a lot on the old journals. And does it mean that the young journals or the new publishing journals, does it mean that if you are new, then you're not good enough? Another issue that we talked about is the issue of leadership, and we said that in leadership, we need to focus on policy. The leaders need to focus on policy, and they need to focus a lot on policies that can be implemented. Another issue that came about leadership is the issue of digital competency for the leaders. In as much as you'll want to explain to them what is open access, if they're not digitally competent, then that means that most of them are not in a position to be able to understand. Another last issue that we talked about is the issue of promoting transparency and collaboration in scientific research, the availability of all the data and the methods that have been used, and so that the results of the research can be verified, and also scientists from different disciplines should work together. And lastly, the issue of public access to scientific research. Thank you. Any of my group members who can probably add something that I've forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. That was really good. I like about the digital competency for leadership. As I'd said earlier in the meeting, that Olu, please put your comments and in the chat, or your contributions in the document or in the chat. As I'd said earlier, that one of the challenges that we need to be cognizant of is that we need to be cognizant of the fact that the leadership are from a different generation. When they were not using digital technologies for academic publishing. So they're getting into the digital era with all the developments that come with it. So yes, I like that you've highlighted the need to include digital literacy for leadership, because without that, knowing very well open science is actually in the heart of digital literacy. There is a need to, you'll find that there'll be pushback because of lack of understanding. Olu, is it something that you can put in the chat or you want to share? Olu? Is it something you can put in the chat or in the document, or you need to share? Because I can see.
I just want to add more to what my group member just said.
Okay.
The person that just finished, Molly, is my group member.
Yes.
In fact, I gave her a thumbs up. She really impressed. I mean, you know, that's why I thought she's a female, you know, and I'm a male, but that was fantastic.
Yes.
Now, just additional thing I want to add is the leadership should concentrate more on policies that are pragmatable, policies that are doable, workable, not elephant projects, so that the flow of this open science will not just down arrival in their school, in their institute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution. So group 7, we had Abdul Karim, we had Dijon, we had Gifty, we had Catherine, we had Lynn, Rohina, Tapiwa, and Tanhuke and Trinity. Rohina, are you going to present?
Yeah, I can report back. Okay. I don't think we assigned anyone. What we discussed echoed a lot of the really useful and points that have already been raised, really great points that have been raised. If I had to summarize what our group discussed, it was really focused on education and awareness for all strata and levels of the university if we're going to push forward an open science agenda. So starting with the leadership, intensifying efforts to create more awareness amongst leadership, making that part of leadership meetings and thinking about other ways of getting alignment among that leadership, but kind of prefacing that and helping that sensitization via specific seminars and webinars aimed at that leadership, but with outcomes defined. So with the intention that there would be action plans generated from such events, but internal capacity building exercises, both at the leadership level, but then through to researchers and those actually doing the science or research as well, as to how open science fits into their day-to-day work. In terms of incentives, one point that was raised was more recognition of the societal benefit of research in kind of assessing reward and for researchers and being part of career advancement. And that's also an issue for leadership as well. And yeah, then a lot around capacity building and what was needed, more training programs for researchers and lecturers. Happy to have other input from the group members if I've missed anything out.
Thank you so much, Rohina. And for the group members, feel free to add any more information in the Google Doc that I've shared with you. And we are going to go to the last group, and that had Collins, Hanan, Jackton, Kolawole, Lydia, Mosepele, and Ngozi. Please, Ngozi, please go ahead.
Okay, we sat and then we came up with these views and ideas. So in the first place, we feel that research, open science, and then the information centers or the libraries in each universities cannot work without each other. One cannot work without the other. Then, for example, if you are the one to sell or do the advocacy on the part of the leaders in terms of making favorable or positive responses to issues concerning open science, that person could be the university librarian, could be someone from the information center of the university. That person in the first place will have to be relevant in terms of research. That person has to ensure that workshop trainings being carried out in the faculties on the part of the faculty members, they will have to be trained on the databases the university has, okay, on how to go about using these databases, on how to go about making use of these databases to carry out research, you know, how to go about searching for the various research topics one has. And then apart from, you know, carrying out trainings, workshops on the part of faculty members, the students too will have to be aware, they have to be taught about the database.
Ngozi, we lost you.
That the university, databases that the university has, how the researches and how searches can be made about even how to use the Boolean search, you know, getting relevant information resources to carry out a research. When this person is relevant, the person can then go to the leaders, because we understand that leaders are also critical. That is the vice chancellor, the deputy vice chancellor. You know, the members of management are very, very critical in terms of getting favorable responses regarding open science. Then when you go to them to lobby, you know, to make your advocacy, they can then listen to you, because in the first place, you are already relevant. You are very, very relevant. They can then listen to you. So in terms of educational skills, you know, we have to let our faculty members know, let our students know that the era of cooking up data is gone. You know, we have to open their eyes to let them know the databases that are free on the net, the ones that can be subscribed, the institutions can pay for. Then let them know that the data or the results, the findings of any result, the positive effect is going to have in the society, that it is very, very important, and to not to go into cooking up data. In terms of incentives, we came up with the view that researchers, could be the faculty members, could be the students, that they have to be rewarded at the end of or they have to be encouraged or motivated. You know, the university can share their publication fee with them, they can come up, they can say, the university can say, bring the 40% of the publication fee, while we bring the 60% of the publication fee. All these we go on to encourage research and open science. I don't know, my group members, if you have any other thing to say, you can go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ngozi. Letitia, you have a Oluwale, you have a comment?
Yeah. To add, we also have to look at the issue of policy.
Okay.
You see, as far as leadership is concerned, anything you want to do, when there is no policy that clearly defines the routes and all the things that are entailed, it may be very, very difficult for us to achieve anything. So policy issue is very, very key. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. You have a
that was what I wanted to say. Policy, including policy, whatever we're doing, then also communication, science communication. We need to go out there and make our research known through science communication. That's what I just wanted to add. Thank you.
So effective science communication. Good.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I wanted yes. Also to add that we also need robust research and science infrastructure and find ways through collaboration on how we can share, resources to also share this infrastructure and its development, and also the possibility of working with research, national research and education networks, which are non-commercial ISP providers. Even though we might not dump the commercial ones, we still engage the commercial ones and the non-commercial ones, and the two can add value to our capacity to be able to open our horizons, and also create new frontiers in the conquest for egalitarian and democratic access to science.
Fantastic. Abednego? Abednego, your hand is raised.
Just in response to the issue of the NRENs that was just raised up, I just want to say that AAU is also involved in doing that, engaging the research education networks across the continent so that they can provide access to some of these things, the infrastructure as well, to support open science. So we are also in that area, and we will continue. But just before I leave, I just want to say that as we are all here now, when we go back, we should make sure that we are starting the conversations in our institutions. We are not just here to come attend and go back. What we want is the impact. So when we go back, please let's begin to start conversations. Let's start something. If it's a journal in your institution, please publish some of these findings that we are sharing here, the recommendations, publish in them. Make noise about some of these things, and let's see how it gets us from here to the next step where we want to be.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Muhumuza, please, Dr. Muhumuza, please share with us your views. Your hand is up.
I'm not yet a doctor.
Yes.
But I'm contributing on the issue of training researchers on reference management tools, especially for referencing to avoid plagiarism, so that they get skills on how to reference their research work. Thank you.
Okay, from a scholarly communication perspective. So thank you so much for your contribution, everybody. We are now winding up. This has been a very, very fruitful meeting. And Richard, you have a view, a comment before we wind up? Richard? Okay, so this has been a very fruitful two-day meeting. And one of our colleagues has mentioned something that I actually wanted to wind up with. That is, in terms of infrastructure, when we are looking at open science, we need to be also cognizant of the fact that we need to have good infrastructural systems that can support us if we are going to implement them. There's the literacy awareness, and we've all agreed that the literacy awareness transcends, has to go across from researchers up to leadership. And also we need to be cognizant of the dynamics that the vice chancellors have to face, especially when they're reporting to ministries, and sometimes government ministries and sometimes presidents and the councils, university councils. So even when we are talking about open science, we need to ask ourselves, how are we going? We need to factor all these dynamics, but at the same time, as Professor Ruffles had mentioned, was that we need to look at open science from the perspective on how it actually contributes to competitiveness. And he shared with us how that is possible. I thank you so much for the time that you have made to take part in our workshop. There is a survey that I've shared with you. It's 60 seconds, just fill it in because we want to know how you're also going to further work with the leadership with the university. It will just take 60 seconds of your time. It's point and click, and it's already pre-filled so that you can just click on the parts that you feel that are relevant to you. Share with us your views, and we want to know how are you going to work with the universities in adopting open science, and also how are you going to work with the library in creating awareness? Are you going to work with them? How are you going to work with the directors of publishing in adopting equitable open access publishing policies within your institutes? How are you going to work with the universities, in the university vice chancellors, in guiding them on what they need to do in adopting open science? All these points that you've shared with us in the Google Doc, also share that with us in the surveys. I look forward to seeing to reading your views. We are going to share all these views in the report that we are going to release. This is the second part of our 4-part series of continental workshops we are doing. The first one we did was in East Africa in partnership with the University of Dar es Salaam, and we brought in vice chancellors, deputy vice chancellors, directors of research, and director of library sciences, and top researchers from Eastern and Central Africa. This is the second one we are doing in Northern Africa and the Middle East, and the third one is going to be done in South Africa, hosted by the University of Cape Town, and it will be targeting Southern Africa. And the last one is going to be done at the AAU headquarters in Ghana, targeting Western Africa. So far, for this particular workshop, we received over 431 registered participants. You've all been active online and physically as well. And we had participants from 5 continents. So I thank you so much for your participation in this workshop. We are going to share with you the reports, and I look forward to seeing your views as you're filling in the surveys. With that, ladies and gentlemen, goodbye and have a good day.